while you were shooting the Forest Hills and specifically Shelley's scenes, you kind of also had to implement some unorthodox directing methods. Can you kind of describe the weird limitations that you had?
Sure. During the first two shoots, my daughter was very young at the time. She's 5, but when she was like, about 2.5 years ago, she was like 2.5, and COVID was right before that. So I was stay at home, because I have my own business, work from home, stay at home dad, literally just with her every day, all the time. And so it was very hard for me to kind of, because she was still like in the toddler stage, kind of hard for me to travel and whatnot, especially with like limits, people being limited to like watch her. I didn't really have anyone to watch her if I had to travel. I don't like flying either, but if I have to, I'll fly. But obviously for Shelley, I did on the last shoot. But
As long as
um,
it's not a Boeing.
yeah, 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 exactly. So yeah, so like I went down there on the later shoots. I think it was once or twice, but on 2 or 3 times, I think, yeah, it was 3 times I directed over the phone through FaceTime, and she found that very fascinating. So that was pretty cool. That it was that she found that very interesting. So
Well, certainly it's brings a new definition to working from home, right? You
yeah,
know?
for sure. Yeah,
So right before I saw it, I remember you had premiered it at Kevin Smith's Smod Castle, I believe it's called.
yeah, Smart Castle Cinemas. Yep.
So I mean that's an exciting premiere. How did that go? I mean that must have been exciting to get that feedback from that room.
Yeah, for sure. So we had a lot of like cast and crew, and people. It was interesting. Like you know, the people who came out, I think, like for Cinema Arts Center and like Smod Castle when there was those two screenings, it was cool. Like there's a mix of people, right? There's like people who find out about it in the paper or find out about it online or have seen the trailer. Then there's cast and crew. And then there's also like a mix of, it could be, family and friends, and everything and whatnot. So um I look at it interestingly now because it's like with the screenings that we have coming up for this October, it's not really that. It's like now this is like grassroots. People are hearing about it. It's not cast and crew. It's not family. It's not some people who've maybe heard about it. It's like actual now the actual horror community can see the film. Whereas like I guess it was a little different because we had some family there and stuff. People are excited. They're supportive. So I'm looking forward to seeing it's October. The amount of people that go out and support her final film because now it's different, right? Now it's her final film. It's not Shelley's returned and whatnot. Now it's sorry, did I cut off there? Sorry, my phone. Okay, my battery said 10%. So now it's her final film. So instead of being her return film, so it's different in those ways.
Well, I mean, you certainly have a lot of momentum going into this October release. Um, what are you excited for audiences to take away from the movie?
I just want them to experience the type of film that I wanted to see. Like I didn't want to do like the same film, the horror that's done, like where there's jump scares or orchestral music or anything like that. Like I feel like when I look at films like John Carpenter or George Romero, and filmmakers like that, I'm inspired by that kind of stuff. So I don't think my films are like that, but like I like the music to kind of be like Carpenter-ish or like 80s or a mix of just feel like.
I actually got a Argento vibe from it.
Okay, yeah, I do like Argento too. Yeah, 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 very
Um,
cool.
I got a kind of Argento vibe from the soundtrack, which, by the way, is a pretty fun soundtrack for this film. Can you also talk about how the soundtrack came to be? Because you worked with some interesting people for that, right?
Yeah, so the soundtrack, so we have a musical soundtrack, which is the one that was composed by Mark Nadolsky for the actual film, and he and I, kind of communicated about like more of an '80s type of, vibe, trying to stray away from orchestral and big horns and things like that, and because I'm not a fan with that. Like when it comes to darker horror films, I think they need to be like have that old school feel. But and as far as the soundtrack, Nick Greystone, one of the executive producers, put out a like a motion picture soundtrack that was just released today, I think on Bandcamp. It's called the Forest Hills official soundtrack. So it has like bands that his band Demon Scar and Aiden, which was a band that was around like in like the like mid 2000s, like when My Chemical Romance was out. They were smaller, much smaller. Aiden was much smaller, But they had a song called "Die Romantic," which was like a huge hit back then, like in the MTV days. But yeah, so now he does like independent stuff. Like he's like like an independent self-titled artist. He's under the name William Control. So now he does like Depeche Mode type music. And he had a song, and we added that into the end credits. So there's a lot of new things in this new version that wasn't in the original cut. Yeah.
Well, I'm definitely excited to see the new version. What would you say is like the biggest change that you made from the first cut that we saw to the new one?
Sure. So the first like 20 minutes, 25, 30 minutes is 100% different. It's darker. It's the way the film is graded. It's very bleak looking, very dark, desaturated a little bit more so. Um, and so there's just a lot more difference. Like Rico is more of a conspiracy kind of guy who believes in like beasts in the woods and monsters and UFOs and things like that. So I kind of wanted to make it more more of a unique thing, as opposed to it being where he's crying with his sister around like the other people who had head trauma and whatnot. So yeah, that's kind of the vibe. It's just a completely different vibe, and there's a lot more werewolves, a lot more Shelley. There's a lot more just basically darker vibe. It's much darker for sure.
So you mentioned the werewolf aspect. I didn't know if that was a spoiler or not, but since you mentioned it, I
Yeah,
have to ask, what is your favorite werewolf transition in cinema?
probably American Werewolf in London. Yeah, I'd say that one. The Howling I felt was a little. It looks a little weird, but no, but American Werewolf in London. I mean, that's you can't beat that one. And then I got like really pissed off at like Cursed. Like those like CGI ones. I mean, but back then, it wasn't that CGI wasn't that great, and like I don't like the underworld stuff or anything like that. But yeah, like American Werewolf in London is cool. That's my favorite for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, the one thing I still like about American Werewolf in London too is even when he becomes the beast, it's not disconnected from the romance of it. I think the end of that movie is still very effective and touching, because she knows that it's him when he's
Mhm.
the wolf at the end, and my heart always breaks at the ending of that film. And I do love that they don't lose, who he is despite the really, the marvelous effects that they're implementing at the time. It's like
Right.
it does, for all of its explosive finale, it really is still very grounded in its emotions. That's one of the things I really still love about that movie.
Very cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
Um, so I mean, obviously, we're coming up on this premiere. Um, it's an exciting time. Do you have any other projects in the works right now that you're working on?
Just some pitch decks. I have pitch decks and scripts that are ready to go. One called Montauk about Camp Hero and Montauk boys, and supposed mind control experiments, and how like it's just like kind of like an early '90s young kid who moves to this Montauk with his mother, and it's Halloween time, and it's really cool kind of concept. I have that, and also another concept called The Three. It's about like an underground bunker, very similar like Day of the Dead, scientists and human replicas and stuff, and the end of the world and just isolation. So stuff like that.
So
I have a bunch.
documentary-esque.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So stuff like that. But yeah, no. But I think once this film comes out, hopefully there's some more projects. That'd be pretty cool. So for sure. So
Well, we're looking forward to it. I don't want to keep you too long because I know we were kind of shotgunning this one today. But thank you very much for coming on the show. I'm really happy that we're able to find some time to do it.
appreciate it.
Um, Looking forward to the new release of The Forest Hills, which will be released nationally, correct?
Yes, it will be released in the United States and also in Canada. I'm trying for Alaska, but we'll see if they get back to me.
Alaska.
Yeah,
It's too cold over there anyway for
yeah,
the wolves, it's
yeah. There you go. Yeah, I know. I can't. It's too far walk too. Yeah.
yeah. All right. Well, you could catch his movie in select theaters later this year. Um, be sure to catch any of his upcoming films, possibly that Montauk one in the future. Maybe he'll come back on the works to promote it.
Appreciate it.
Um, Thank you, Scott, for coming on the show, and wish you a lot of luck.
Thank you, Samuel. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, man.
Thanks.